All right, everybody, welcome back. Justin Kidder with you here on Dayton's ESPN radio station, 1410 Wing AM. No Kev Nash today. He'll be back on the show tomorrow, of course, as we're winding the week up, heading into the weekend. Of course, we'll be talking some Cincinnati Reds coming up here momentarily. Again, spring training is fully in effect. In fact, our first spring training game here on 1410 Wing AM with the Reds this Sunday. We'll talk about that with the Reds reporter coming up just around the corner. All right, so we're kind of in that little lull period. You know, the Super Bowl has come and gone, and now we're kind of waiting for free agency to officially hit, and now everyone's they're getting anxious, and all we're doing is we're arguing about what players our team should go get, and some of us don't even understand how the cap works, so we're asking for something that we have no business asking for our teams. Other teams have all this cap space in the world, and those fan bases are content with not doing anything. I mean, it's the strangest thing. We're all getting anxious. We need the draft. We need free agency, and I'm excited to bring on our next guest from the Orange and Brown Report. We have Jack Duffin hanging out with us here today. Jack, how are you, my friend? Welcome.
I'm doing great. This for me is like Christmas. This time of the year as we approach free agency, and then we get two like insane days where like all of these players start signing for crazy money, and it's great fun.
So now you, for the Orange and Brown Report, based on your bio and everything, says that you write about the salary cap, which is good because as a sports talk radio show host, our job is to pretend that we know what the hell we're talking about. But there's a reason that every time you tune into a sports talk show, they have other people on the show with them, right? Because they're bringing on the people that actually know what they're talking about. So that's your job here today. We're going to talk about the cap situation because there was a graphic that ESPN had released a little bit ago that had the Cleveland Browns at minus 20 million as far as the cap hit's concerned. And obviously, when you look at that, people making fun of the Browns. I live here in Dayton, so of course Bengals country, they're ripping us and making fun of us left and right. Those people clearly don't know how the cap works. There's clearly going to be some restructuring going on to get them above it and well above the cap. We'll talk about that in a moment, but just tell me a little bit about how you got into covering the cap situation, not just for the Browns, but the NFL as a whole.
Yeah, so the main reason I ended up with the Browns and even the cap, all of that sort of data stuff intrigues me. You've got like Premier League, football over in the UK. You just spend whatever you want. You completely do what you want, spend what you want. No one cares. Whereas it's a very, very different dynamic with the NFL. And the main reason I ended up as Browns, favorite book, favorite movie, Moneyball. Paul DePodesta joined the Browns, and I was like, that's my team. And it was done. Simple as that. And I didn't really know what I was getting into. If you'd have told me, hey, you're going to win one game in the next 2 years, might have not been so excited about it, but it's been a blast.
No. So now that with that being said, the Cleveland Browns, of course, last year, first team ever, last March, the first team ever to give a fully guaranteed contract to a quarterback. You said you've done this for a while as far as the numbers fascinating you. Clearly no general manager, no front office has had to deal with a fully guaranteed contract, especially for a quarterback, the most expensive position out on that field. When you initially heard that a year ago, not that the Browns were getting Deshaun Watson, but that they were getting a quarterback for fully guaranteed money, the richest contract in NFL history, what was your initial takeaway of that? And like right away, how did you start kind of spiraling into how that impacts, the cap situation?
Yeah, it was pretty relaxed. And to be honest, a lot of it is quite overblown because if you have to think back to what was the last time an above average quarterback was cut, that's Peyton Manning. So that was the last time. And effectively, all of these QB deals, if the QB is semi-good, no one's getting cut because another team will trade for them. Teams are willing to trade for Carson Wentz, Jared Goff. They're more than happy to take contracts off your hands. So the chances of any of these QBs that are above average getting cut is just non-existent. So they're effectively all guaranteed anyway. So it was a bit overblown. You've had like Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins that have had guaranteed deals. But if Deshaun Watson wouldn't have had the no trade clause, he doesn't get this contract. He was effectively a free agent, and why not? It's a bidding war. And what can you offer as a team? Fully guaranteed deal. No team's going to trade 3 firsts for a player and cut him in 2 years anyway. So the fully guaranteed deal, people make a lot more out of it than you worry about. And QBs aren't getting cut because there's about 12 good ones, and so everyone wants one.
So if that's the case, your takeaways as far as like you look at a team like the Baltimore Ravens, and right now the only holdup, and look, they've given him multiple offers, 133 mil guaranteed. A part of that, the latest deal that I saw the report of, that's not what he wanted. He wants in the ballpark of Deshaun Watson. I agree with you. I think it is being overblown, but at the same time, it seems to be a big deal for team owners because the Ravens could potentially lose. I mean, if we're saying it's not a big deal for the Browns to give fully guaranteed money to Deshaun Watson, well, the Ravens, they're almost willing to lose Lamar Jackson over fully guaranteed money. Why is that situation different in your opinion?
So the issue that some owners have is you have to put a lot of this money away in escrow. And that's the cash. How many owners have like 200 mil of cash to go, yeah, I'll go put that somewhere. And that's kind of the issue. And the funny thing is, it's the players' union that is trying to get rid of this rule so that owners don't have to do this. Because back in the day, yeah, there was sort of uncertainty about the league. Would it succeed? Can the owners deal with that money? No one's concerned that players are going to get paid in this day and age. So the players are happy to lift the lid. The owners are the ones fighting it because they don't want fully guaranteed deals. I suppose it's a little bit different with Lamar Jackson because there is the way he plays the game is incredibly exciting, but there is a higher risk of injury. So that might be one of those deals where, hey, down the line, they're like, you've picked up some serious injuries. You can't run anymore. What do we do? So that could be the slight difference, but it's mainly owners don't want to just put all that money in escrow. They could get rid of it. I think it's one of those things you might see in the next CBA, the agreement between the union and the owners, where the players try and leverage it out, and then the owners will take something away from them as a negotiating chip.
We got Jack Duffin with us here, the Orange and Brown Report, 24/7 Sports. Awesome enough to spend some time with us here today to kind of give us some insight into the cap. That's what he covers for the Orange and Brown Report. And so let's talk about another team in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals, because you use the term escrow a little bit. Keep in mind the one thing about the Cleveland Browns, they have a very rich ownership group. And by the way, all these owners are super rich. They're, no one's feeling bad for these guys. No one's going to walk over and drop some change in their little cup as they're shaking it on the corner by any means. But there are levels to the richness of these owners, and obviously the Bengals ownership is kind of near the bottom as far as that's concerned. I mean, they saw what was ahead when Joe Burrow hit and Lamar and Jamar Chase and all these guys started hitting. That's why it's now Paycor Stadium. Obviously, they're doing a lot of things differently than they've ever done before. Talk about how difficult it is for a team like Cincinnati. I know everyone gets paid. Joe Burrow's going to get his money, but talk about why it's more difficult for a team like Cincinnati to do this type of deal if they do a fully guaranteed contract with Joe Burrow versus what the Browns did with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, these owners are rich, but there's different elements of rich. Are you cash rich? Because there's difference between having sort of a massive empire, maybe you own it in business or something, and then having like 200 mil sat in the bank to go, yeah, we'll just send that in for one player. So that's kind of what the problem is, where some of these owners are like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And it's why in like Patrick Mahomes' deal, if you look at it, the fully guaranteed at signing is quite low. But effectively every year, like 1 year in advance, guarantees, and it's what they call rolling guarantees. So you'll see something like that in Joe Burrow's deal, where say it's a 5-year deal, first 2 years are fully guaranteed at signing, and then year 3 and 4 might guarantee sort of after year 1, year 3 guarantees, and that sort of as a cycle, it will just guarantee a year out. Because hey, if you go and do that, the player will be like, yeah, you can cut me and pay me 60 mil and then I'll go sign with another team. They're not going to mind.
So I mean, right now, where do you think that number is going to be for Joe Burrow? Is he going to surpass Deshaun Watson, or is we going to see yes, you're saying yes, he's going to surpass Deshaun Watson even in the guaranteed department?
So maybe not in the fully guaranteed, but at the end of the day, the guarantees are with other positions. If we're talking about, say, a running back, big guarantees, it's like, hey, those guys get cut because they sign the deals and then suddenly their play declines or something there on the end. Whereas if you're a quarterback, it's just about what's on the paper. Because if Joe Burrow suddenly they decide they want to let go of him, someone else is going to trade for him. He's going to have no issue keep getting that money. So they're talking like 50 mil plus, and you're talking Hurts. You've got Burrow. Who's the other one? Is Herbert's up this year? Tua's probably not going to get paid this year. But those three guys, whoever gets paid first, that'll be the first deal. And then it'll be like 1 million extra for the next one. And then the third one gets like 1 million more than that. And we only have to look at Myles Garrett got paid. And then Joey Bosa, I think, was something like 2 weeks later. Hey, he gets another $1.5 million a year just by waiting 2 weeks. So it's funny how it's just like the next one out the door just has to get a little bit more than the last.
So, and again, right now, so it's interesting. Deshaun has his money. He's contracts taken care of. However, the Browns are being strategic as far as when they decide to restructure this deal, because although Deshaun's taken care of, you talk about those other quarterbacks, agents waiting for the other deal to get done before they get theirs done. Deshaun's kind of doing the same thing, or at least the Browns are doing the same thing with his deal, correct? Because based on what Lamar or Joe Burrow or whoever gets paid next, that dictates just how much money they save against the cap when they restructure his deal. Am I saying that or following that correctly?
So really interesting with Lamar Jackson's deal, because he's going to get franchise tagged, it's the average of the top 5 quarterbacks. So At the moment, Deshaun Watson's deal is paying him $46 million in cash this year. The minute they restructure him, the base salary drops down to about $1 million. So suddenly it's like, well, that's not as much. So that brings Lamar Jackson's number down. So what they'll probably do is that they'll wait until Lamar Jackson's tagged, keep that tag as high as possible for Lamar Jackson. And then if you restructure him, hey, you've cost the Ravens a few more million because their tag's higher, and it makes no difference to the Browns. So whatever it is in terms of like next QB, the deals will keep going up. We'll be sat here in 2 years' time and talking about how cheap Deshaun Watson's deal is, just the way the NFL works.
Well, that's good to know as a Browns fan. I've brought you on today to talk about the Browns. We've talked a lot about the Ravens and Bengals, but I always tell our listeners, look, we talk AFC North football because everything the Ravens do impacts the Browns and the Bengals, Steelers, and just like what the Browns did impacted everyone else. Do you believe if Deshaun's not a Cleveland Brown right now, do you think Lamar and the Ravens have a deal done, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think they probably do.
Interesting.
The fact that deal was done at that price point, another team might have given him a fully guaranteed deal, which could have caused the issue. But if there was no fully guaranteed deal, I think this deal was done a year ago for Lamar Jackson. That's going to be the sticking point. And I keep an eye on the Falcons. They've got an owner that will happily stump up the cash. If he's going to get traded, it makes a lot of sense that their owner will go, hey, I'll give you the money you need. Come here, fully guaranteed, less done. So if he's going to push the fully guaranteed, Falcons make a lot of sense.
Why do you think they didn't do that for Deshaun? Because the Falcons were in line too. Everyone acts like people beat up on the Browns and say how horrible they are for stepping up to take Deshaun. But, I mean, it was a bidding war. It was not just the Browns that stepped up and ignored the issues off the field. I mean, there were a lot of teams in the mix, and the Falcons were one of them. When you think back to a year ago, is the only reason Deshaun in Cleveland is because they were the only ones willing to do the fully guaranteed contract? What did you unfold when you were kind of looking into what transpired there with the dealings of how the contracts were going to work out if the Falcons or someone else stepped up to get Deshaun?
Yeah, so the reports at the time were the Browns went in and just offered and said, hey, fully guarantee it, just get this done. And the agent took that to Deshaun Watson and he went, let's do this. What was reported afterwards, there was other teams in the bidding that said if they'd have come to us and said that's the line, they would happily agree to it. They didn't name who those teams were, but you'd probably guess it's the Falcons.
I needed that. I need all the. Oh man, I've been needing to combat all the hate from Bengals fans and everyone. This is why I brought you on today. You are awesome. All right, keep going. I need more of that.
I'm sure there was loads of teams offering for Deshaun Watson. There was probably about half the league. If you're looking at, say, I get the Bengals wouldn't have they had Burrow, Mahomes. They're obviously set. About half the league were probably inquiring. The Steelers, there was noise around them. There was noise around everyone because you do not get that talented a player on the market very often at all, under contract. And yeah, that's why there's 8, 10, 12 of these guys that are legitimate, you pay big money to and can compete at the highest level. Teams are going to pay whatever it takes because winning cures all. Hey, all this negativity around Tyreek Hill and what he's done in the past, no one cares anymore now he's winning. It's just the way the NFL unfortunately works.
All right, Jack Duffin with us here, Orange and Brown Report. Again, Jack, last thing here on the way out. We talked about it a little bit ago. For one, the contract surrounding Watson, even almost a year later, it's still fascinating. It's still a talking point. He's overrated. The Browns made a mistake, yada, yada. But you brought up a good point. I mean, a couple years from now, by the way, I remember when Patrick Mahomes got his deal with the Chiefs, it was record-breaking. I mean, everyone was like, oh, my gosh. What a deal. Now, when you look at Deshaun and you look at what Lamar's potentially going to get, Joe Burrow, I mean, we're looking at a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, a 2-time MVP, and that's a steal right now for the Chiefs, and that's going to be the Browns here in no time when it comes to, of course, the contract that they have with him. So with that being said, we head into 2023. Right now as it stands, I believe, I could be wrong, you're the number expert, but the last number I saw that was floating around some graphics, -$1 million as far as the cap is concerned. It's not just Deshaun's deal that they can restructure. There's quite a few other guys as well. You put out a very interesting piece that I'm going to share here on social media here once our interview is done. But there's a lot of the Browns front office is going to be pretty busy here in the near future restructuring this to put them in position to go get more expensive contracts on the books.
Yeah, so I don't quite know where ESPN's minus 20 mil comes from. It's
Did you see that? Did you see the number that they put out? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I've got minus 13.5 mil, so it's not dramatically different, but it'd be great to know where that last bit is coming from. But you're going to see restructures. So Deshaun Watson's restructure 36 mil, Garrett around 13 million gains, Teller 9, Batonio 8. I could probably see a John Johnson cut June 1st. That's 9.75 mil. Suddenly you're at plus 60 million of cap space. And restructures, players are more than happy to do it because it makes no difference to them. They're getting the same money, guaranteed. It's all fine there. There's stuff in their contracts allowing the teams to do it without going to them because it's not a pay cut. All it is paying someone as a signing bonus, and that then spreads it out over the next 5 years of the deal, and they just get that money. So zero concern for the player. Lots of people think it's a pay cut. It's not. It's like buying something on a credit card. I would say that's the best analogy. If you get a credit card, you are not instantly rich. You still have to pay that money down the line. So it's just a balancing game of saying, hey, we're going to pay for this on the credit card. We'll spread it out over the next 5 years, and then we'll deal with it down the line. So because they've got quite a rich owner, the Browns, they're able to just spend more than the salary cap each year, load up the credit card, not to a crazy level. We've seen the Saints go crazy, and they've then had to cut a lot of their roster. They're doing it sort of, it's about 115% of what the sort of salary cap each year. They load that onto the credit card, and then because the cap keeps going up, you've always got money to keep paying it off.
This does impact them negatively down the road, though, correct? Like doing this, so there will be a season that this catches up with them?
Yeah, so it's a balancing game of you have to pay this money off down the road. And it's why I'm expecting the sort of Garretts, the Watsons, who are going to be here ages. You can spread that all the way out. A guy like Amari Cooper that's got 2 years left on his deal, yes, it frees up quite a bit of money restructuring him, but then you're paying that back over the next sort of 3 years. Whereas you get guys that are here long term, restructure those. And I'd expect long term, it's just going to be like Watson and maybe one or two others that they constantly go to.
Is that why Michael Thomas, is that why, because he has so much little time on his deal left, that's why it's such a major cap hit? Because so if they extended him, they could stretch that out again and just keep kicking that. Okay. All right. So you're educating me. I like this. So
yeah. So any of the base salary, you can convert it into signing bonus. Once it's in signing bonus, you can't then sort of move and jiggle it around. It's kind of just there.
Okay.
And then if a player leaves your team, you just pick up the bill. So they'll be fine. There'll be some dead cap on John Johnson, but the key thing is like cash. They've got to pay him $9.75 million if they want him to play for the 2023 season. And they're going to go, actually, let's move on. Bring in, whether it's a John Thornhill, it's like $5.5 million, and you're happy days. You've got another sort of $5 million you can go spend on someone else. So it's a balancing game. The Browns are definitely on the cutting edge. The Browns, the Eagles, the Saints, of crazy stuff you can do with a cap. But they're in good hands.
Cool. Hey, Jack, last thing here on the way out. You had another interesting piece out about being careful when you look at wide receivers, being very careful. I know DeAndre Hopkins' name is being mentioned as a potential trade target for the Cleveland Browns. I mean, if they do free up all this cap space, he could potentially be. But you're a little weary of that, correct? Based on following you on social, you're not a big fan of going after those big name free agent older wide receivers and putting a big price tag on that could set you back. Your thoughts on the Browns potentially targeting DeAndre Hopkins and reuniting him with Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, it's probably going to cost you something similar to the Julio Jones trade, and that was like a second and a sixth. And I or even if it's like a high third, I don't want to get in that sweepstake because that's a lot of money you're going to have to pay him, and then you're giving up the picks. And quite often these guys, Julio, we've seen Robert Woods last year, trade for him, and then you envisage this great career they've had in the past. If they were still that great, their team probably weren't getting rid of them. So it's one way you get lumbered. I think the most likely thing you're going to get is they'll sign some middling wide receiver like a Trent Sherfield on like $3 million. They'll then go and draft someone. So keep an eye on the Browns drafting a wide receiver at 42, whether it's someone like Josh Downs, and then I expect them to extend DPJ this offseason. Somewhere in the 10 to 12.5 million range. They'll get that deal done. That won't come till June, July time when deals tend to get sorted there for extending players, but they're more or less staying with what they have, I'd expect.
All right, good stuff. Jack Duffin, again, taking time, hanging out with us here today. Orange and Brown Report, 24/7 Sports. Jack, appreciate your time. Quick, the number range, what's the cap number you think that the Browns are going to get to? What are you projecting? This is a quick, you don't have to elaborate too much, but what's that number you're projecting, if you will?
Yeah, 61.5 million. So if you ever head over to my Twitter, it's at Jack Duffin, Duffin. The pin tweet at the top is always like the current cap situation. So when players sign through the off season, go over and check it. It usually takes about 48 hours for the actual deal to come out because they'll announce it and they won't actually tell us for a while what the numbers are. But I'll keep updating it. So it's always a good place to go and check, well, where are they now? What's going on next? I'll always have it pinned there.
All right, good stuff. You don't know it yet, but you're the show's official cap wizard. You're our cap guru that we'll keep going to if you'll keep coming on. So, Jack Duffin, Orange and Brown Report. Jack, beyond appreciate your time, man. Thanks so much.
All the best. Go Browns.